Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Show. It's 844-DIG-CHAD to get you in. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are a part of the broadcast. Don't forget you can go to thechadshow.com. Lots of ways to be part of it. And he loves it when you go on Twitter and give him the little tweet. And it's simple to do. If you have that little app on your phone, all you have to do is the @ChadBenson Show. All right? Do it. Let's get right into it. We got a lot to do today. I know that people say it's slow news. It's the day before Thanksgiving. There's the big storm coming in. There are flights that are canceled. If you love the Macy's Day Parade because you love to watch balloons, then I feel really bad for you. Number one, because that's weird. And what do you mean it's weird? Balloons are cool. If you're 5 years old, I understand. That's really cool. And I will take you down to the parade myself. Otherwise, it's a balloon, people. You're not even going up in the balloon. It's a balloon in a cartoon shape. And you're upset that they might not have those tomorrow. It's a tradition. Well, get a new tradition. It can't be new in a tradition. It's over time that it becomes a tradition. Why is some... I understand. But yes, there's a lot of craziness going on around the holiday. So obviously there's no news. But that's just not true. There's news breaking out all over the place. And there's crazy stories we're going to get to. Stories about people who are having climate anxiety. I can't even say it with a straight face. I haven't even really started talking about it yet. And I can't get through the fact that people are having climate anxiety. We're going to get to that today. We've got students on these very, very privileged college campuses explaining how we really shouldn't be celebrating Thanksgiving at all. Because, it's just a horrible, horrible day about how the colonists really committed genocide here in the United States, and really shouldn't even be called the United States. It should be called the Indigenous Peoples Country, although that's not even really what we should call it, because just the whole idea of having a country is a bad patriarchal concept that we should never even, and I think it really hits on intersectionality and cisgender and heteronormativity, and I don't even think that we should be talking anymore. I need my safe space. All that we're going to get to. I mean, there's so much to do. But let's start with what's going on with President Trump. The big release here from the New York Times. It's another bombshell. This is it. This is the one. New allegations in the New York Times citing two people familiar with the matter. Names? No. But they're familiar with the matter. I mean, they saw it? No. But they're familiar with the matter. They're reporting that President Trump knew about the whistleblower's complaint when he decided to unfreeze the military aid to Ukraine. See, that's it. Okay. Even if this is true, which may or may not be, who knows anymore. But let's say this is true. Let's say that President Trump had the call with Zelensky and, decided, I am going to hold this aid a little bit. I want him to actually do some investigations into this corruption. I want to know what happened with CrowdStrike and the server and whether Ukraine was involved in trying to manipulate the election and against me, which is what, was talked about in Politico and other places. And, I think that is important. And I think it's important to see if the second most powerful politician in the United States at the time, Vice President Biden, was corrupted with what was going on with his son Hunter and the company Burisma and the money that was going back and forth. And I think that's kind of important. Let's say all that happened. And then he released the aid when he found out that there was a so-called whistleblower. Does that prove that what he did was illegal? No. Because guess what? There can be more than one reason you do something. See, I have no problem with a quid pro quo. I know President Trump says there was no quid pro quo, and all kinds of people trying to defend him say there was no quid pro quo. I have no problem with the quid pro quo. Because that's what you do. When you are the United States of America and you are giving aid to an ally, you expect to get something back. That's called quid pro quo. I'll give you this if you give me this. We always want something. We want you to continue to be our ally. We want you to support what we're doing in your region of the world. We want, maybe we want you to vote for something in the UN for us. There's all kinds of things that we want from people who are our ally, who we are loaning or giving money or arms to. every single time we want something, and we should want something. We're not just somebody's big piggy bank. Of course, we're supposed to get something for it. So to get something to look into the corruption that was going on in Ukraine that could have been influencing our election and into who was then the vice president of the United States of America, I think is a pretty freaking big deal. And I think you have every right to try to get that out of these guys. So I don't have a problem with that at all. But so here's the thing. People say, oh, he just did it because it was going to help him politically against Biden. As I say, two things can be true at the same time. Looking into the corruption might end up hurting Biden. And if that hurt Biden, that would help Trump if they ran against each other. But that doesn't mean that the only reason he did it was because it could help him politically. And since there is a legitimate reason, then the whole thing is nonsense. So even if he did decide, you know what, I'm going to release these funds now. How do you prove that the reason he released the funds is because he had heard about the whistleblower? By the way, they say he heard about the whistleblower at the end of August and he didn't release the funds till September 11th. So if he was that upset about it and that worried about it, that, oh no, they got me now, he waited 11, 12, 13, 15 days. I think it's another whole lot of nothing. It's a whole lot of nothing. He was also on with Bill O'Reilly on wherever Bill O'Reilly is now. And Trump said that he did not direct his attorney to Ukraine, that would be Giuliani, to push for investigations. No, I didn't direct him. But you have to understand, Rudy is a great corruption fighter. And that Trump's just basically saying, look, I had Giuliani to go over there to look into corruption. Isn't that a good thing? I trust the guy. He's a crime fighter. He's a corruption fighter. He was a great district attorney. So there you go. Oh, but hey, 2 Office of Management and Budget officials, careerists, bureaucrats, resigned, and they said they were worried about the hold that was put on the Ukraine money in weapons, missiles. Mark Sandy, the only one to testify in the impeachment inquiry, did not name the employees, but said one had a dissenting opinion about how the security assistance to Ukraine could be held up in light of the Impoundment Control Act, and the other expressed some frustrations about not understanding the reason for the hold. Okay, so wait a second. Let me translate that. So you had one guy who was upset and said, I don't think that's right. And you had the other guy that said, you know what, I'm frustrated by this. And they both quit. Okay, bye-bye. It proves absolutely nothing because there were other attorneys that said, President Trump, you have every right to withhold that money. And there were other people that actually wanted to go along with President Trump's agenda because they're supposed to be working for the president. No, they got him in this time. That's another one. They got him. But then you go and look at what the people are saying. I mean, you know how you feel about it. You might know how your friend feels about it. You might know what a few of your neighbors think. But it depends on what news you're consuming. You might think the whole country is against Trump or the whole country is for Trump. So they try to take some polls. AP is reporting a story in Wisconsin. Impeachment fight leaves voters cold in contested Wisconsin. Yeah, Wisconsin's a battleground state, right? So they interviewed, the man on the street, like Harry Rose, a 78-year-old retired factory worker and Trump supporter. Everything they say, it's so repetitive. To me, it's like they're beating their heads against the wall. That's Harry Rose. He's tired of the impeachment talk. Nicole Morrison is 36 years old. She really can't see herself voting for Trump. But she has a similar view. She said there's so much information. Sometimes it's hard to decide which is the truth and which is just rumors. So I don't pay any attention to it. Bingo. Bingo. Bing, 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 bing. We have a winner. Yes. These guys cried wolf for so long. And so many so-called bombshells that turn out not to be, that people are saying enough. People are saying, I'm tired of this. It's nonsense. I've got a real life to live. I don't want to be told that the world's ending every other day. I would like to actually get on with my life, and I'd like you guys to actually do your jobs. And it's showing that's why people really aren't changing their mind on impeachment, except for the swing voters. And they seem to be swinging towards President Trump. And it's driving the Democrats and the media and the celebrities, but I repeat myself, crazy. There was a little bit more from that nurse, Nicole Morrison. She was quoted as saying that she's undecided who she'll vote for, although she typically leans Democratic. But impeachment isn't swaying her because she can't trust what she hears about the president anymore. Quote, I feel like we've been hearing since the second he was elected president, he needs to be impeached. So why waste my time to listen to it? Yup. That's it. That's it in a nutshell, isn't it? And then back to the AP story. It's a disappointing, if not unexpected, response for Democrats who'd hoped to use the hearings to sway public opinion. Without that backing, it's virtually impossible to imagine Republican senators voting to convict Trump. Wait, it's a disappointing, if not unexpected, response for Democrats? The Democrats did not expect President Trump's approval to actually inch up while they're trying to impeach him. They did not expect the swing voters to change 26 points from 26 less points in favor of impeachment in a month. A 26-point shift on whether or not President Trump should be impeached in 1 month. They did not expect that. They didn't expect it at all. This thing could backfire on them. Marquette University Law School poll registered voters for the approval of Trump's job, 47%. That's actually pretty high. Right about what Obama's was at this time. More expressed opposition than support for impeachment. 53% against the impeachment, only 40% for it. This is not what the Democrats were hoping for at all. Especially, did you see Monday? We had the stock market reaching another high. We've got more. What did I see today? This is from CNBC. S&P 500 rises for a fourth straight day, hits another record high. Newsbusters pointed out that Monday, when the stock market hit another high, none of the three main broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, none of them mentioned it. That's kind of a big deal when the stock market hits a new high, isn't it? Nope, not when Trump's in office. No. We ignore that. We ignore that. See, that's not fake news. That's just news bias. That's just omission news is what that is. So the S&P 500 rises for a fourth straight day. It hits a fresh record high. And the U.S. economy grew at a moderate 2.1% annual rate last quarter. Remember when we were told we're going to have to get used to 1% growth? That's the new normal. Yeah, we're going to be in the 1% growth. I mean, we can't get back up to 2 and 3, 4. Forget it, never. Are you kidding me? And we keep doing it. It's interesting. And it's why Trump is out there calling BS. Trump said, the fact is America is winning again. And I got a little bit from Trump that I want to let you hear. Cut one here from President Trump at his... I'll tell you what, we're going to do that in a second because I see that we're going a little long here. I'm getting a little excited. When we come back, I'm going to let you hear a little bit from Trump's homecoming rally in Sunrise, Florida. And then we're going to get into these college students that say it's not okay to celebrate Thanksgiving. Hang tight. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show.
Wannabe boys, give me a bowl of chili with plenty of peppers.
One Mexican heartburn. Why don't you mugs grow up?
The Chad Benson Show, where independent, a la carte thinkers have a seat at the table and a voice in the dialogue.
I'll have what she's having.
This is Chad Benson.
What was Rudy Giuliani doing in Ukraine on your behalf?
Well, you have to ask that to Rudy, but Rudy, I don't even know. I know he was going to go to Ukraine, and I think he canceled the trip. But you know, Rudy has other clients other than me. I'm one.
So you didn't direct him to go there on your behalf. You
no.
didn't.
So there's Trump with O'Reilly, and he's saying, I didn't direct him to go. You know, he's got other clients. He's a corruption fighter. He's a crime fighter. I asked him to look into the corruption. Now, do you believe that he didn't send Rudy or didn't tell Rudy to go to Ukraine? I think it all comes down to semantics, probably. I could see Trump saying, hey, Rudy, I want you to look into the corruption. I think there's some corruption in Ukraine. Look into that for me. I didn't tell him to go to Ukraine. I just said look into the corruption. I don't know what's the problem with that. Oh. What's O'Reilly doing? Is that a blog? I mean, is that a podcast? Is that a streaming? So what is O'Reilly doing? I don't know. Somebody tell me. 844-DIG-CHAD if you know. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you're in. And President Trump was at what they called a homecoming rally in Sunrise, Florida, Tuesday night. And he was fired up. Here's just a little bit. Cut one, please.
The radical left Democrats are trying to rip our nation apart.
Oh.
First, it was the Russia hoax, total hoax. It was a failed overthrow attempt and the biggest fraud in the history of our country. And then you look, the Mueller deal, you remember that mess? They had nothing. 2 years, they spent $45 million, and the real cost is many times that number. And now the same maniacs are pushing the deranged impeachment. Think of this. Impeachment. A witch hunt. The same as before.
And he went on to finish. They're pushing that impeachment, witch hunt, a lot of bad things that are happening to them because you see what's happening in the polls. Everybody said that's really bull bleep, except, he said it because he's President Trump and he just says it. And I don't really like that part of it. I don't really want my president to be cussing in public, but that's me. And I know I'm old fashioned on that and I'm old school on that. And there's a lot of people that love it. They think it's refreshing. They think it's somebody talking like they talk. And that's true because cussing has become so common, it's very difficult to not hear it, ever. And President Trump is certainly not the only politician cussing in public. You got Democrats dropping the MF bomb on people, putting it on T-shirts. So, hey, if there's a better place to cuss than D.C., I don't know where it is. Keeping you up to date on all that. Wait, college students say we shouldn't even be celebrating Thanksgiving. I'll get you that in just a minute. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad Benson on The Chad Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you can be on the program and tell everybody what you think. 844-DIG-CHAD. And if you want to do the Twitter thing, it's at Chad Benson Show. Lots of ways to be a part of the program. Tomorrow is the big turkey day. Thanksgiving is upon us, and the College Fix decided to find out what college students thought about it. So they went to McAllister College in Minnesota and asked students, do you think it's acceptable to celebrate Thanksgiving? And the vast majority of the students, no way. That's a horrible thing to do. So do you want to go to class tomorrow? No, what do you do? Of course not. But this holiday is horrible. It's awful. And they talked about the oppression that it represents. Oppression and colonization. One student said, I think that Thanksgiving has been misconstrued a lot, especially in textbooks. Yeah, you're right. It has been. They tried to make it seem like it was just thanking the Indians and it was all about socialism, when really, if you look at the writings of the people who came here, they were floundering under socialistic ideas. And once they transitioned to capitalistic ideas and had property that they owned, then all of a sudden there was this bounty. And then they were thanking God and thanking the indigenous people for helping them as well, teach them some things about the local climate and the local agrarian nature there, and how to do farming and everything else they want to do. But no, it was about oppression and colonization. It's kind of just based off the genocide of indigenous people. And I don't really think that we actually give thanks on Thanksgiving. We just eat a bunch of food, and it's just a bunch of capitalist bull bleep. He must have been listening to President Trump last night. Yes, the capitalist bull bleep that created the richest country in the world and your ability to go to this school and get a degree so you can get a good job so that you can go out and buy stuff you don't really need to impress people you really don't like. That kind of capitalist bull bleep that has changed the world, that has lifted more people out of poverty than any socialist concept or social worker could ever do. What do Americans do except celebrate unethical holidays, said another student. Another one outside of a chapel said no holidays with religious connotations should be observed. This is our future, people. I mean, I know I'm laughing, but because it comes a point that's all you can do. We are indoctrinating these children and these young adults in college who act like children into this belief that they're victims, that the world is just this systemically racist, xenophobic, heteronormative patriarchy that is against them and keeping them down. And if they're white, they should feel guilty about being white. And if they're any other color, they should be mad at white people for abusing them. And can't figure out why we can't get along. Thanksgiving is about giving thanks to God for the bounty that they had at the time, and yes, to their new friends, because the Pilgrims actually got along with the people who were here first. Now, later, there were European settlers who absolutely mistreated the people who were here before they got here, fought them, lied to them, but not the Pilgrims on Thanksgiving Day. And by the way, yes, I totally agree that the European settlers and eventually Americans were treating the American Indians poorly. No doubt about it. That's historical. But here's the other part of that. Compared to what worldwide? You understand that since the dawn of time, wars make boundaries. And there are always wars. And there's always a winner and there's always a loser. And the vast majority of the time, the winner bullied the loser and killed the loser. That's how you win a war. Every once in a while, there's a war that's fought defensively where the defensive person wins and doesn't try to take any land and really just tries to help everybody and keep the world going well, like, World War II. But the people that were here before the Pilgrims were here, they weren't just all sitting around a tree worshiping Gaia. There were Indian tribes fighting other Indian tribes, killing each other, and taking each other's women and children as slaves. But we never talk about that in school. You're not allowed. Shh. You can't talk about that. The Indians were perfect angels. They've never done anything wrong. And the only time they ever attacked somebody who wasn't of their tribe was simply in self-defense. And so, no, you can't talk about what was going on really. Because what are you trying to whitewash what happened? Are you trying to excuse the way the American Indians were treated? No, not at all. Just trying to say that's the way that everybody treats everybody, especially back then. It's a human condition. It's not a European condition or a white person condition. It's a human condition. Because if you keep going back in time, the Indians killing the Indians and the Africans killing the Africans and taking each other as slaves long before the European white man showed up. That doesn't excuse anything. It simply explains it. But no, only the European is... Oh, speaking of college, Heather McDonald has a great piece in the Wall Street Journal where she's just asking the question, why are college students so afraid of me? Heather McDonald has written great stuff about race and gender and what's going on with police and the whole idea of Black Lives Matter and police officers shooting black people. And she's done it extremely well by looking at all kinds of data and crunching the numbers and people who are bent on being victims and saying that our country is perpetually systemically racist. Not that we have some racist people. There's no doubt about that. But that we are systemically racist, which would mean the laws are racist. The justice system is racist. Everything that the government touch is racist. When she points out that that's just not the case and has facts and data to back it up, not only is she called wrong, and that's fine, everybody has the right to her opinion, these colleges are wanting to shut her up. So when a college group invites her in, like a conservative group might invite her to campus, the rest of the college rallies to shut her up. And she's like, why are you so afraid of me? She says, few things upset American college students more than being told they aren't oppressed. I recently spoke at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass., and I argued that American undergraduates are among the most privileged individuals in history. That's true, isn't it? You look at their unfettered access to knowledge. You look at the amount of money they have, their disposable income, the amount of food, the amount of free time. They're surrounded by well-meaning faculty who want all of them to succeed. But about 15 minutes into her talk, when she was talking about Renaissance humanism, a majority of the audience gets up and starts chanting, "My oppression is not a delusion. My oppression is not a delusion. You are not welcome." And then they got up and left. And what they were trying to do is take up the entire auditorium and then get up and leave so that nobody would hear her speak. But thankfully, about half the auditorium was filled with people who really wanted to. Other people that wanted to hear were turned away because it was full, because these idiots were trying to cram all the seats full so they could make it seem like nobody wanted to hear her. After she left, a senior wrote a letter claiming that Heather McDonald came to Holy Cross to discredit, humiliate, and deny the existence of minority students. What she really did was say to everyone at the school, hey, you're in an awesome place. Why don't you seize these opportunities for learning right now and do it with joy and gratitude, no matter what color you are? Oh, you're trying to deny my existence. No, how about this? How about you enjoy your life? How about you've got 4 years of your life here that's like a fantasy life. Most of you don't have to work right now. Most of you are either being paid by your parents, or you're on scholarship, or you've taken out some loans that one day you're going to have to repay. But right now, you're not working. And you're going to school maybe 3 days a week for a couple hours at a time. And the rest of the time, you're going to sit around and complain about how horrible your life is and how badly you're being discriminated against? Why don't you enjoy it? Why don't you actually go out there and learn something that you love and create a great career out of it? Why don't you make friends with people who are different than you instead of acting like they hate you? Because everybody on this campus, 99.9% of the people on this campus would just love to be your friend. No. You're trying to deny my existence. And it's not just the students, the faculty and administrators at Bucknell University, right before she was going to talk there, convened a therapeutic scholars panel to take place during her talk. Listen to this. This is awesome. It's from Heather McDonald, right? She said, Bucknell's interpersonal violence prevention coordinator, the director of its Women's Resource Center, the interim associate provost for diversity, equity, and inclusion, a women's and gender studies professor, and is this a joke? Did they walk into a bar? No, I'm not done. And an economics professor discussed rape culture, trauma, and racism. Students and faculty were then invited to join in painting self-care rocks. You can't make this up. That's where, and by the way, Bucknell costs $72,000 a year to go to that school. So they did a craft. They painted self-care rocks. This was something that was designed for, kindergarten through fifth grade classroom, and you're paying $72,000 for your kid to go to Bucknell to paint a self-care rock. According to Bucknell's interpersonal violence prevention coordinator, it was especially important for students who had attended my talk, this is Heather McDonald, to come to the scholar space afterwards and practice self-care. In fact, the interim associate provost for diversity, equity, and inclusion said that the administration's willingness to let Heather McDonald's talk proceed shows that it values free speech more than the community's trauma. And by the way, that's not a good thing. They want her declared as hate speech. They want her to not be allowed to talk. Student journalists actually claimed that letting Heather McDonald speak on campus. They claim that free speech amplifies hate speech. Wow. And an English professor cheered them on, urging colleagues to support those whose firsthand experiences with injustice at Bucknell were invalidated and perpetuated by Heather McDonald's arguments. See, here's the tough stuff, man. She ends with this. She says, certain ideas are now taboo in the academy. Above all, the idea that behavior and culture better explain socioeconomic disparities in the U.S. than bigotry does. Yep. And if you say that, somehow that makes you the bad guy. Heather McDonald, Wall Street Journal today. That's going on. You need to check. If your kid's in college, you need to ask them about this. My daughter's in college right now, and she tells me, yeah, Dad, I'm afraid to say what I really think in certain situations because the cancel culture will come after me. And I don't want my professors to give me bad grades, and I don't want to be an outcast on campus, so I just walk away. That's pretty sad, isn't it? Oh, man. Wait till you hear what's going on. Did you know the Democrats right now are being sexist and racist? I'll explain that in a second. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you in. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where the sensible center hangs out. Hey, you! That doesn't mean you can put your feet up on the table.
You're despicable. This is Chad Benson.
And my name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you can join in. 844-DIG-CHAD. Well, we all knew it was true, but now they've proved it. The Democrats are sexist and racist. Let me explain just for a second here. Elizabeth Warren was doing really well until very recently. But the latest national poll, the Democratic primary by Quinnipiac, shows Elizabeth Warren in a slump. She went from 28% in October to 14%. Meanwhile, Biden and Buttigieg, they're on the upturn. So the only possible reason that Elizabeth Warren is slipping to the point that people are saying she's not going to have a chance to win the primary, it has to be because she's a woman. So we've got these sexist Democrats who won't vote for a woman. They talk a good game, but they won't vote for a woman. And then you move on to, let's see, Bernie Sanders is at 13%. Kamala Harris, 3%. She's a woman and black. They're sexist and racist. Well, she's black and Indian. And then you go to Yang. He's at 2%, and Booker's at 2%. Yang is of Asian descent. Booker is African-American descent. The Democrats are, look, everybody who's not a white male is slipping or in single digits. The top guys are all white men. And really, if you get outside of Iowa, the top two in the Democratic primary race are two old white dudes, both in their 70s. So the Democrats are sexist and racist, and I, for one, am very offended. Elizabeth Warren, besides plummeting in the polls, last Friday she came out and admitted she was wrong to say she was with Bernie on Medicare for All, to get rid of private insurance right away. She now says she'll wait until the third year of her presidency to abolish private insurance. She also said, she's going to have to increase his taxes by about $20 trillion, but most estimates say her plan will cost $30 to $40 trillion to pay for. And so that's not going real well. It might be part of the reason, besides the fact that the Democrats are all sexist and racist, that she's not doing so well in the polling anymore. In fact, they think that Medicare for All is a big part of it. Warren released her plan to raise taxes by $20 trillion to pay for the $30 to $40 trillion program. Medicare for All has grown increasingly unpopular among all American voters, according to Reuters. 36% say it is a good idea, and 52% say it is a bad idea. Uh-oh. That's not good for Elizabeth Warren. That's not good for Bernie Sanders. In fact, that's not good for the Democrat Party. But it might be good for you, because it is a horrible idea. And people are starting, a lot of these things sound really interesting and maybe even good abstractly until you get down to realizing how much it would cost, who would pay for it, and what it would do to the incentive to actually, invent new drugs, invent new life-saving drugs, invent new life-saving surgical supplies and, surgical equipment and procedures. And, let me ask you this. If you socialize medicine, it's going to lead to doctors making less money. At what point does somebody smart enough to become a super specialized doctor that takes like 12 years of schooling to become, at what point does that doctor say, you know what? That's not worth it. All the money and time and effort I had to put in to become a doctor, and you're going to pay me $80,000 a year? I think I'll go into business instead. At what point does that happen and you lose the best and the brightest? Because it's already happening around the world with socialized medicine. Yeah, Elizabeth Warren, it might not be just because they're sexist over at the Democratic Party. Hang in. My name is Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board. You can go to thechadshow.com as well. And on Twitter, you can tweet at Chad Benson Show. Lots of ways to be a part of the program. Would love for you to join in. And I'm going to talk a bit about the impeachment situation, what's going on there. Democrats getting cold feet, according to multiple sources. Do you really think they're going to impeach Trump? I don't see how they can't now. So we'll continue to update you on that. But also, have you heard of climate anxiety? Climate anxiety. It's a thing. Yes, we'll explain how it's a thing. And the Supreme Court, there's going to be a lot of Trump cases coming up at the Supreme Court. And we're told by the Washington Post that this will test the court's desire to be seen as neutral. Let me translate. If they don't rule against Trump, that means they're partisan. Now, if they rule against Trump, then that means they're nonpartisan. Got it? All right, good. Glad you got that one. Got a lot to get into this hour. Hope you have great plans for Thanksgiving Day. Hope you just eat too much, but I hope you do take that time to actually give thanks. Because I love Thanksgiving because it's not about buying presents for everybody. You don't have to do a lot of decorating. You really don't have to do anything if you don't want to, of course. But if you spend time with family and friends and you actually really do think about all you have to be thankful for, just that right there can change your day. It can really change your life because so many people are trying to teach you that you're a victim. And they're trying to get you to complain and to look at the worst parts of your life and to think that everybody's out to get you. And somebody doesn't like you because of your skin color or because of how much you weigh or because of what your sexual lifestyle is or because of this, that. There's got to be a reason somebody or something about our society is against. And it's just a horrible time to be alive. And it couldn't be further from the truth. There's never been a better time to be alive than right now. Yes, of course, we still have some people that discriminate against each other. Absolutely. But there's never been a better time where your rights are more protected and where you have more opportunities to do whatever you want to do than right now. And what you have at your fingertips with the internet, to the gathering of knowledge, to starting your own business. I mean, that's the stuff that you have. Just the other day, I was driving home. A guy said, "Hey, man, your headlight's out." I was like, "Ah, man." So I stopped at the store. I buy the little bulb that goes into the headlight, which, of course, they looked up on the computer to tell me exactly which one. Bingo. I go home. It's a $6 headlight bulb. I dial up on YouTube how to replace the headlight bulb on my particular model of car. And in 10 minutes, I'm done. I would never have done that before. I would have had to go to the mechanic and have him do it, or I'd be trying to figure it out of a manual that stinks. I mean, I saw a story about a woman who said she wanted to build her own house. She just wanted to say she built the entire house. Small house, but she built the entire house, all by YouTube videos. The entire house, by herself. You can do anything you want to do. It's an unbelievable time to be alive, unless you listen to the grievance mongers. Unless you listen to the people that are making a living telling you can't do anything. They usually have a D after their name. Or they have a PhD after their name. It's usually one of those people that's going to tell you that you can't do anything because it's just so hard now. Oh, you're being discriminated against. Oh, you're being oppressed. Oh, you're being put down while you're at a $70,000 a year college that you got into. Yeah. I think Thanksgiving's an awesome holiday, so I hope you have much to give thanks for. I know I do. Meanwhile, back in the impeachment area, this is just beautiful. I'm sure you saw this, where Representative Brenda Lawrence came out earlier this week. She was on some podcast. She's a Democrat of Michigan. And she came out and basically flipped on impeachment. She's been for impeachment. She's in a liberal district. She's an African American. And she's been for impeachment. And she flipped. And once the Republicans started pointing out that she'd flipped, and once the Democrats heard that she'd flipped, pressure was applied. She flipped back, and MSNBC dutifully came out and said, "Can you believe the right-wing media is trying to say that you flipped?" I mean, that's just crazy talk. They're just trying to start. I mean, how do you feel that the right-wing media is trying to say that you flipped? She goes, I'm very upset because I didn't flip. I've been for impeachment. I'm still for impeachment. I don't know what they're talking about. Okay, here's what we were talking about. On this show, this podcast, she says, it's called the No BS News Hour, and it was Sunday. She said this about impeachment. "We are so close to an election. I will tell you, sitting here knowing how divided the country is, I don't see the value of taking him out of office." Okay, so you don't want to impeach him? She goes on. "I do see the value of putting down a marker saying his behavior is not acceptable. It's in violation of the office and the oath of office of President of the United States." So the host asks her, "Are you saying in an election year that it's unwise to tear him from the chair?" She said, "I want him censured. I want it on the record that the House of Representatives did their job and they told the president and any president coming behind him, this is unacceptable behavior. And under our Constitution, we will not allow it." Okay, so you just said you're not for impeaching and removing. You're simply for calling for a censure. Isn't that a flip? I mean, isn't that a flip, guys? No. She came out, I was an early supporter for impeachment in 2017. I continue to support impeachment. However, I am very concerned about Senate Republicans and the fact they would find this behavior by the president unacceptable. So MSNBC, the host Chris Jansen, came out and said, this is really Washington Free Beacon pointing out they caught her on air. I know you know what folks on the right are saying now. They say you flipped, Jansen said to Lawrence. I'm going to show you. There are headlines. One says, swing state Dem flips on impeachment. House Democrat backs down from impeachment. They see them in Daily Caller and Newsmax. But MSNBC earlier in the day, MSNBC host Craig Melvin said, yes, the impeachment process should end, according to Lawrence, and it shows that she has a change of heart. So MSNBC was reporting this woman flipped. And then another MSNBC host came on and said, the right-wing media is creating this idea that you flipped. Here we have a Democrat from a solidly blue district, by the way, saying she does not see the value in taking the president out of office, said MSNBC host Chris Melvin earlier in the day. In fact, it sounds to me perhaps she would be more in favor of a censure than she would be of impeachment. Yeah, because that's what she said. She actually said that. You don't have to infer anything. She actually said it. No one in so-called right-wing media put the words in her mouth. But then the other host on MSNBC asked Lawrence if she was bothered by the right-wing media presenting her comments as a flip on impeachment. It's very disappointing because it's a slap to where I stand. I have not flipped. But the reason I bring this up to you is just to show you they can't even tell the truth on this. And it goes to CNN and Politico and a couple other reports that there are Democrats starting to think that impeachment is a loser politically. Case in point, CNN senior White House correspondent Jeff Zeleny on Tuesday. You talk to some Democratic voters out there, as I have, and you watch what Democratic presidential candidates are talking about. It's not this, impeachment. They do not believe this is a winner for them in November. I told you about the Marquette University Law School poll. Only 36% of independent voters approve of impeachment and removal. Only 36%. And those are the people that can actually have their mind changed. And a month ago, they were more in favor of having President Trump impeached. About 20 points difference in a month. Uh-oh. That could be trouble if you're on the Democratic side. But CNN analyst, Washington Post reporter Rachel Bade, I do think that this polling is sort of a warning sign for the Democrats. I mean, if they're not able to move public sentiment at all with those 5 hearings, with a dozen State Department or NSC officials coming forward and testifying against the president, I mean, that's a problem for them. I mean, this should be a high point for them in terms of making the case to the voters. Yes, the more we see the Democrats and their so-called witnesses, the worse it goes for them. CNN's John King says polling shows 40% of Americans believe Democrats were abusing their constitutional powers. Gallup has similar results, that more of the swing voters are going against impeachment, not for it, and against the Democrats. This could be trouble. Some are even predicting that the Republicans could take back the House in this election. Oh, man. And then there's Adam Shaw, Fox News, Democratic's doomsday scenario. Could anxious moderates scuttle the impeachment push? So these stories are growing. Now, I don't see any way that the Democrats could truly say, we're not going to impeach. We're not even going to call a vote on it. We're just going to censure them. I just don't see how they could do that because it's just been dragged out for so long. It's been built up so much for their voters. You have to keep your base happy if you're going to have a chance to win at all. They've got to go through with this, don't they? But when you look at the historically low black unemployment numbers, you look at the historically low Hispanic unemployment numbers. Remember when President Trump ran the first time and he started running in some predominantly black areas and he said, you've been voting Democrat for a long time. How's that working out for you? Why not try me this time? What the hell you got to lose? Remember that? And I think it started to resonate with some because they're saying, you're right. We've been voting for these jokers for decades and nothing seems to change. Maybe it's time to try somebody else. Maybe it's time to have our vote not taken for granted anymore. And here comes President Trump. He does some great work on regulations, does some great work on tax cuts. We have had a rebounding economy where our stock market's at an all-time high. Unemployment is as low as it's been since 1969. Black unemployment and Hispanic unemployment have been at record lows under President Trump. And they were much higher under President Obama. And we're starting to see some polling saying that President Trump is getting up to 30% approval in the black demographic. What? Oh, man. We can't have that if you're a Democrat. They're starting to panic a little bit. Starting to get a little rash, a little bit of the hives, a little bit of the heebie-jeebies. I got to tell you about how Trump says he's trying to defend executive privilege, not because he doesn't want his people to actually come forward and testify in an impeachment inquiry, but because he has to do it for future presidents. You believe that? And have you ever had climate anxiety? It's a thing. I'll explain. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show.
no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you in. 844-DIG-CHAD. Washington Post has another bombshell. Bombshell today. Giuliani was in talks to be paid by Ukraine's top prosecutor as they together sought damaging information on Democrats. Aha! This is it. It's done. Now he's in trouble. President Donald Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, negotiated earlier this year to represent Ukraine's top prosecutor for at least $200,000 during the same months that Giuliani was working with the prosecutor to dig up dirt on Vice President Joe Biden. Who wrote this? Adam Schiff? I mean, it's like the fake conversation that Adam Schiff had. Remember when he said, President Trump said to Zelensky, now listen, I want you to dig up dirt on Biden, and I'm going to say it and say it again and say it again, and I don't want you to get back to me until you've got some dirt on him. Remember that? The totally made up stuff? So here, working with the prosecutor to dig up dirt on Vice President Joe Biden. So the Washington Post, this is a news article. They're describing looking into corruption between Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and Burisma, a board that Hunter Biden sat on when he knew absolutely nothing about energy and nothing about Ukraine. He even admitted the only reason he's on that board is because his last name is Biden, where Joe Biden gets the prosecutor out that was investigating Burisma. So the Washington Post says looking into that potential corruption isn't looking into corruption, it's trying to dig up dirt on Vice President Biden. Oh, real? Okay, yeah. Oh, well, I mean, if you put it that way, well, then, of course, it's what I could have written the headline, Rudy Giuliani worked with prosecutor in Ukraine to try to stamp out corruption and also worked with him in another capacity. I mean, you could write it a lot of different ways, couldn't you? No, only one way. President Trump on Tuesday defended blocking top officials from testifying as part of the House impeachment inquiry because he said he's got to protect the office of the presidency for future presidents. This is Fox News. And he said, look, I'd rather have these guys testify, but we've got to protect executive privilege. So, of course, what he's talking about is executive privilege is there so that a president can actually work with his high-level officials and be honest and open with them and not worry that they're going to be called to testify about every little thing and compromise presidential communications. It's also about the separation of powers. It has been there for forever, and every president has used it. And when Trump tries to use it, the Democrats say that's obstruction of justice. Oh, he's just trying to hold it up in the courts. You mean like every president has ever done? Well, yeah, but this is different because he's a Republican and his last name's Trump. I mean, listen, executive privilege is a real thing. So you claim it of people who are working with you, and if it goes to the court, then the court has to decide. Yeah, I think he has every right to claim it. What do you think? I mean, it goes to, Trump said, Bolton may know that I held back the money from Ukraine because it's considered a corrupt country. I wanted to know why nearby European countries weren't putting up money also. He said the D.C. wolves and fake news media are reading far too much into people being forced by courts to testify before Congress. I'm fighting for future presidents and the office of the president. Other than that, I would actually like people to testify. So, is this about executive privilege or is this about trying to obstruct justice? Are you anxious about the climate? It's a thing. Coming up, Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board. 844-DIG-CHAD. Are you suffering from climate anxiety. Now, I know you may at first poo-poo this, but I will not be poo-pooed. This is a real thing. Well, it's a thing. It's a thing according to Debbie Chang. She's 43 years old. She's organized a group counseling session on dealing with climate anxiety in the National Mall. So she should know. She's decided not to have children and is trying to follow a zero waste policy. Is she deciding not to have children, or is it the men who are deciding? Let's not even go down that line. But she keeps chopsticks in her purse to avoid single-use plastic utensils. I mean, she cares. She carries a handkerchief to substitute for paper napkins. That's hygienic. She brings a steel container with her to restaurants for any leftovers she might want. I don't even think she should be eating at a restaurant. Do you know how much more that damages the environment than if she would just grow her own food in her backyard and maybe hunt for some squirrels? I mean, she really wants to get serious about this, but she said not that long ago, it was difficult to find information on climate anxiety. Not that long ago, back before everybody was bat bleep crazy, it was kind of hard to find climate anxiety, climate grief, climate despair, climate counseling information. I mean, it wasn't as handy as it is now. But now that we're all cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, I can find it easily. This is from the AFP. So this is not just like a made-up onion story. In U.S., climate anxiety churns up psychological storm. In the melting Arctic, communities are racing to maintain their way of life. In the rising Pacific, residents are sounding alarm bells. And in Rhode Island, Kate Shapira and her husband are not having a baby. I'm sorry, but the melting Arctic, there are other places that the ice is growing. And the rising Pacific, who is dying from the rising Pacific? No one. And by the way, the planet has been warmer than it is right now. No. This is the hottest ever. No, they're claiming it's the hottest on record, which is a blip in the history of this planet. We know that it's been hotter than it is now because there are streets in England named after grapes you make wine out of, where you can't grow grapes you make wine out of anymore because it's too cold. We know this from all kinds of archaeological information and scientific data that it used to be warmer on this planet than it is now. It's gotten hotter, it's gotten colder. It's gotten hotter, it's gotten colder. Now, I'm not scientifically sound enough to tell you exactly how much hotter it is now than then and when, but I will tell you this, the climate's going to constantly change. And whether or not you bring chopsticks to your next restaurant meal along with a steel container to put your food in, that's not going to make any difference whatsoever. See, Greg, it's just that kind of attitude that we don't need. This attitude that one person can't make a difference. Oh, I'm not saying one person can't make a difference. I'm saying 1 billion people doing that couldn't make a difference because we are not going to be able to change the climate. Well, we are changing the climate. It's happening right now. No, I'm sorry. I don't believe there is proof of that, especially since we've had a pause in the warming for 17 years. I mean, there's so much information on both sides of this. The idea that somehow you need climate anxiety. Shapira, a 40-year-old senior lecturer in the English department at Brown University, of course she is addressing the unease in a number of ways. The decision not to have children is not just because she can't get a man. That's not in there. See, that was just rude. There's no need to say that. The decision not to have children was not just about concern for their future well-being amid environmental degradation, but also not wanting my sense of responsibility to the world to shrink down to the size of one person. So if you have a child, you don't care about the community at all anymore. All you care about is your child, according to this woman. Obviously, somebody who doesn't have a child. I have children. I don't that's not my only concern in life. Now, it's my bigger concern than other things. But I don't go, well, my kid really wants to do this, so therefore I can pollute as much as I want. I mean, that's stupid. These people are ridiculous. She's also said she's taken her last flight. I wonder if she's mad at some of these celebrities, like the Leo DiCaprios, the Al Gores, the people that are flying around on their own private jets and then buying the offsets because she's not flying anymore. She said she's troubled that people are treating her climate fears like it's a personal individual problem. So she set up a climate anxiety booth in public spaces, like at farmers markets. And it says climate anxiety counseling, 5 cents. The doctor is in. And people will stop in and talk to her about their climate fears. Now, you may be laughing at this. You may be saying, Greg, why are you even talking? Greg, this is a silly little story. I mean, climate anxiety. You ready? According to Yale and George Mason Universities, a study they conducted in March and April, about 6 in 10 Americans say they are at least somewhat worried about global warming. 23% say they're very worried because they've been brainwashing our children for a couple generations now into believing that if you use a plastic straw at a restaurant, a turtle's going to die. And if you drive a car on anything other than electricity, that you are destroying the planet. And before long, in the next 10 to 12 years, there won't even be any fish in the oceans. It's all total nonsense. By the way, if you drive an electric car and you plug it in, you're not really driving an electric car because most of us are getting our electricity either through coal or natural gas. What do you mean? Well, what do you think powers the electricity, creates the electricity coming into your house? A coal-fired power plant, a natural gas-fired power plant, a nuclear power plant. Some kind of power plant is creating that electricity. It doesn't just come out of thin air. So especially in Midwestern states, I'm driving the 100% emission-free vehicle because I plug it in every night. No, you're driving a coal-fired vehicle. You're polluting the planet, buddy. Why don't you get on board and just drive a gasoline engine with really clean-burning gasoline? You'd be saving us all a little bit of bad fumes, man. Yeah. Oh, that'll drive them crazy. Say that the next time you see somebody in one of those. So it just goes on and on. I mean, these people have created anxiety to the point that some people are deciding not to have children and to pursue different careers and to live entirely different lifestyles. And hey, if you're going to let that happen to you, you go ahead. But Lise Van Susteren, a Washington-based psychiatrist, has been studying the mental health impacts of climate change for 15 years and says refusal to recognize the potential hazards is common for people who are trying to deny that they're vulnerable. See, that's it. You're just in denial. If you're not experiencing climate anxiety, if you're not thinking that there's just nothing left to live for, that we shouldn't even have children anymore, then you're just living in denial. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. At a happy hour for environmentalists in Washington, that may be an oxymoron, Alicia Cannon was asked whether she was experiencing any climate anxiety. Oh, God, yes. Mm-hmm. She's 23. Oh, God, yes. Yes. Climate anxiety, that's really, really impacting me strongly. Is it impacting you? 844-DIG-CHAD. I'd love to hear from you on that. 844-DIG-CHAD. Meanwhile, Obama is making headlines. Politico's Ryan Lizza says he's got some takeaways from some meetings that President Obama's had with some of these would-be presidential candidates on the Democratic side. And it says sometimes he offers candid advice to his visitors about their strengths and weaknesses. And with several lesser-known candidates, he's given them blunt talk about the challenges of breaking out of a large field. But people don't always listen. He told Deval Patrick earlier this year it was likely too late for him to secure money and talent if he jumped in the race. With one candidate, he pointed out that during his own 2008 campaign, he had an intimate bond with the electorate, especially in Iowa, and he no longer has it. But then he said, and you know who really doesn't have it? Joe Biden. A2, Obama. Take the knife out of the back, man. Are you kidding? Biden has not come to the West End Summit. But they're such good friends. There's no need for Biden to go to the summit. And Obama also said privately, according to Justine Coleman here, reporting, that President Obama privately said he would speak up to stop Bernie Sanders from becoming the Democratic presidential nominee. Politico reported that yesterday. What? Yeah, so if Sanders held a strong lead in the Democratic primary, that President Obama, former President Obama, would then speak out to prevent him from becoming the nominee. Man, if you're too liberal for Obama, there's some problems. Do you believe that? Now, as people are backpedaling, oh, no, I don't know if President Obama ever said that. Bernie's getting screwed again, man. Democratic Party already lining up against him. If Bernie's the guy coming out in the lead, they're going to find a way not to nominate him. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board. Here's a story that will not be making the nightly news, ABC, NBC, CBS. The story is that more and more transgender men are regretting their gender reassignment surgery. Shh, you're not allowed to talk about that. We will. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you in. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on the Chad Show.
Plea deal this.
Mueller, arrest me.
Chad will trade you 2 perjury charges for 1 collusion and throw in a reduced charge of obstruction for free.
Yeah, I'd do that.
For just listening to The Chad Benson Show.
My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. A couple quick hits for you. Federal District Judge today issuing a temporary stay on her order earlier for former White House counsel Don McGahn to comply with a subpoena to appear before the House Judiciary Committee. So this is following a request from McGahn's attorneys, and they want to stay long enough to allow him to appeal the decision. We'll keep you up to date on that. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez now has a challenge for the House seat she currently occupies from a Jamaican immigrant, Queens businesswoman. She came to the United States as a child. She voted for President Obama, but now she says she thinks President Trump represents the best hope for people in her community. I voted for President Obama. I did so with the hopes that he would do more for African Americans, she said. I thought that Obama would be the one to reverse some of the layers of Joe Biden's crime bill, but he didn't. He was weak on criminal justice reform, she said. President Trump came in, delivered the First Step Act. Now he's on to the Second Step Act. Not only has he delivered on his promise to the American people, but he's doing more for African Americans than any other president has done in my lifetime. That's going to be an interesting race to watch. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. This is from Sarah Taylor, and it says more and more trans men deeply regret gender reassignment surgery. It's a new report out. The BBC was doing the reporting on it. It's biological women who transitioned into men, and there is a trend where more and more are wanting to detransition, regretting their decision. Several stories in here. One is Debbie, biological female, transitioned to male 2 decades ago. She now says she deeply regrets it, seeking to undo it as best she can. She's now 61 years old. She underwent a full surgery. They took her forearm skin and created something as similar to a male body part as you can, if you catch my drift. She took 17 years worth of testosterone treatments. Here's what she says now. This was a mistake that should never have happened. How do I go back to being the Debbie that I was? And here's see, you're not supposed to talk about this at all, but here's the part I wish we would talk about more. Debbie says she believes that sexual abuse, which occurred when she was a child, was at the root of her desire to change sexes. Whoa, wait a second. She's saying maybe it was a mental health issue? See, those people say if you talk about transgender issues and you say, look, I think we need to help people who feel like they're the opposite sex Oh, you hate transgenders. What are you talking about? What do you even, I mean, that's nothing to do with what we're talking about, trying to help someone. I have great empathy for somebody who feels like they're the opposite sex. I can't imagine what that must feel like to go through your day like that. But the answer is not cut off body parts. I mean, when you have someone who's anorexic and they're starving themselves to death and they come to you and say, look how fat I am, because I feel fat, you don't go, oh, you feel fat? Then you are fat. No, we say, you know what? Let's get you some counseling and help you understand that you're not fat and you're starving yourself to death. But for this one, because it's politically correct, we say, oh, you feel like you're the opposite sex? Then you are. Let's chop off body parts and pump you full of hormones. And more of these women who transition to men are saying, I wish somebody would have stopped me. She said, I thought I was going to be on a journey to becoming a different person. I'd morph into someone else and leave that traumatized woman completely behind. She said, really, it was just a way of trying to escape. Then there's Thane, 40-year-old female, transition to male. Says she grew up as what she believed was a gender nonconforming child. And then there was the fact that I was attracted to girls. I just didn't know anybody who was lesbian. And she says, it wasn't until I discovered a community who were affirming to gender nonconforming people that I really made the decision to stop transitioning. Charlie Evans says she struggled with gender identity when she was a teen. She never underwent the hormone treatment or surgery, but she says she eventually began identifying as a woman when she received the support from other people like her. And she says a lot of the people in the group were so mentally or emotionally afflicted, they simply should not have been able to consent to transitioning because they felt so unwell with eating disorders or depression. Yeah, like maybe for some of these people, there's an underlying mental issue that needs to be addressed instead of chopping off body parts. But if you even mention that, somehow you're the person who hates transgender people. How in the world could trying to help somebody not destroy their body and be more suicidal and have more issues afterwards and then regret that decision, how is trying to help somebody with that mean you hate them? This is the newspeak of the left. It's 1984 and 2019. It's Big Brother, it's newspeak, it's shut up. You can't say anything that we don't tell you to say. If you disagree with us, we're going to call you every name in the book and cancel you. How does that help these transgender people? You know, 80% of young people that identify with the opposite gender, they grow out of that, 80%, and yet we're pumping these kids full of hormones. Is that showing your love? I think it's child abuse. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Greg Knapp. I am in for Chad on The Chad Show. You can jump in at 844-DIG-CHAD. You can go to thechadshow.com. Lots of ways for you to be a part of the program, and we encourage you to do so. Got to talk about the latest, what's going on with the impeachment situation, what President Trump has been saying. And have you heard of the robot dogs? Yes, before I got my flying car, I'm getting a robot dog. I kind of wanted it in the opposite order, but I'll take it. Then I want to get into this voter suppression that the Democrats are still pushing. Man, talk about dividing America and making people feel like their vote doesn't count, especially if they happen to be a minority. That's what they're doing, and the data shows that they're just making it up. It's not even true. And Melania Trump goes out there to try to do some good, and she gets booed. Come on, people. You don't boo the first lady. Was this in Philadelphia? No, it wasn't even in Philly. They weren't throwing batteries at her like Santa Claus. And town is looking to let 16-year-olds vote. We got so much to do this hour. Let's just dig right in to what's going on with President Trump. He had a homecoming rally in Sunrise, Florida, Tuesday night. And he was fired up about the witch hunts. Here's President Trump.
The radical left Democrats are trying to rip our nation apart. First, it was the Russia hoax, total hoax. There was a failed overthrow attempt and the biggest fraud in the history of our country. And then you look, the Mueller deal, you remember that mess? They had nothing. 2 years, they spent $45 million, and the real cost is many times that number. And now the same maniacs are pushing the deranged impeachment. Think of this. Impeachment. Impeachment. A witch hunt. The same as before.
And then a little bit of what got some attention is he said they're pushing that impeachment witch hunt. A lot of bad things are happening to them because you see what's happening in the polls. Everybody said that's really BS, except, he said it. And that got the crowd just really super fired up. But what he's talking about in the polls is that several polls now are showing double-digit shifts in percentage points on saying a month ago, yeah, we're for impeaching the president, to now, no, we're against impeaching the president, and especially with the independent voters. That more and more independent voters are saying, no, we're against impeachment. In several of these polls, a majority of the independent voters are saying we are against impeachment. That's not good if you're a Democrat. And Trump is saying that's showing you that the people are looking at this and saying it's a bunch of BS. And so then Trump tweets out today a picture of, retweets, I believe, a picture of him as Rocky. Picture of him when Rocky was in great shape, looked like a Rocky 2 photo, maybe, with his shirt off. He's got the boxing gloves on. His face is superimposed on it, and it's driving the left nuts. I mean, it's really kind of fun to watch the liberals' head explode because they can't believe that he would tweet something out like that. They don't understand how much he trolls them. I mean, he gets off on watching them go nuts. Trump derangement syndrome is real, and Trump is the number one triggerer anytime he possibly can, and it's just making them run around in circles. This is supposed to be the easiest guy in the world to beat. They couldn't beat him the first time. He's going to get reelected, and they know it, and so the only thing they can do is try to get him impeached on something like that phone call? Wow. All right. Well, then we go to President Trump being on with Bill O'Reilly, and they were talking about Rudy Giuliani doing the investigative work into the corruption in Ukraine. And here's the back and forth between O'Reilly and President Trump.
What was Rudy Giuliani doing in Ukraine on your behalf?
Well, you have to ask that to Rudy, but Rudy, I don't even know. I know he was going to go to Ukraine, and I think he canceled the trip. But Rudy has other clients other than me. I'm one.
So you didn't direct him to go there on your behalf. You didn't.
No, he says no. I'm sure he'd be saying, well, I told him to look into the corruption. You got to remember, he's a corruption guy. He's the law and order guy. This is what he did in New York. This is what he did as a district attorney. This is what he did as the mayor. This is who he is. So I just say, Rudy, look into the corruption. I don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to go to Ukraine? Maybe he doesn't go to Ukraine. I don't know, man. Oh, it's really just kind of fun to watch how all this is going on. But we've got more bombshells now. Oh, yes. We have new allegations in the New York Times citing 2 people familiar with the matter. Oh, wow. 2 people. Do you have their names? No. Totally anonymous, but they are familiar with the matter. Oh, so they must have seen it or heard it or well, no, but they're familiar. What does that even mean? Familiar with the matter. But they're reporting that President Trump knew about the whistleblower's complaint when he decided to unfreeze the military aid. Yeah, to Ukraine. They said that he knew about this in late August, sometime in late August. So they don't give you the exact date, but the military aid was unfrozen on September 11th. Well, then why would he wait almost 2 weeks or maybe more than 2 weeks if he was so afraid that the whistleblower was going to make him look bad? By the way, I love how it's put the New York Times talks about, and Washington Post talks about digging up dirt on Biden, and other media outlets have said these investigations to help him politically. Well, there can be two reasons to do something. And if one of them is legitimate and nobody can prove you were doing it for the other reason, then you didn't do anything wrong. Is it not legitimate to ask Ukraine to look into corruption that impacted the United States of America? If Vice President Biden was corrupt in his dealings with Ukraine to get rid of a prosecutor that was investigating the company that his son sat on the board of, by the way, that his son admits the only reason he was on there is because his last name is Biden. By the way, he didn't know anything about Ukraine, didn't speak the language, didn't know anything about energy. He's sitting on the board making millions of dollars over time. Isn't it kind of in the nation's interest to know if there was any corruption there? Done with that one. And if a Ukrainian was involved in any way in trying to sway our election towards Hillary Clinton because the Ukrainian government at the time was in pretty well with the Obama administration and wanted to continue with the Hillary administration, wouldn't that be something important for us to know? Done with that one. Done with the entire impeachment. Right there. Because, of course, there's a quid pro quo. There's always a quid pro quo. When you're giving things to another country, you want something back. You don't just do it because you're nice. Because it's not your money. It's the people's money. And when we give it out, we want something back. Now, sometimes it's just support us in what we do. Sometimes it's just we need you to be an ally. Sometimes it's we need you to do X, Y, Z. So I have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. Do you? 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are in. And there's a big piece today from the AP saying, yeah, these Democrats, man, they're swing states, battleground states. It's not going the way they thought it would go with impeachment. We go to Wisconsin. It's a big battleground state. You got Harry Rose, 78 years old, retired factory worker, Trump supporter. And he says he's just tired of it all. He's tired of the impeachment. Everything they say, it's so repetitive. To me, it's like they're beating their heads against the wall. Yeah, he's done with them. Now, Nicole Morrison is a 36-year-old nurse. She did not vote for Trump, doesn't think she'll vote in the future, normally votes Democratic, but she said there's so much information, sometimes it's hard to decide which is the truth and which is just rumors, so I don't even pay attention to it. She went on to say, I feel like we've been hearing since the second that he was elected president, he needs to be impeached, so why waste my time to listen to it? She's speaking for a lot of people. Most people are not tuned in like you are. You're listening to Chad. You're listening to me. I'm sure you're reading a bunch of different news websites. You probably watch cable news. You're into it. You want to know what's going on. You're reading stuff from the left and the right. You're trying to figure out where you stand on all this. You're involved. But most of your friends and neighbors don't, because they're focused on their job. They're focused on their kids. They're focused on life outside of politics. And for most people, they're going to catch the headlines. And so many headlines have said, this is it, Trump's gone, and he's not. And then you find out that, wait a second, what they told us wasn't true. And people are getting tired of it. A Marquette University Law School poll during the first week of the impeachment hearing showed 47% of voters approved of the job Trump is doing, and more expressed opposition than support for impeachment. 53% were against it, only 40% for it, and it's actually swinging more towards President Trump now, with a Gallup poll and an Emerson poll, and they're all showing the same movement, and it's showing that people are getting tired of it, and they're actually supporting Trump more than they were before this whole thing started. It also doesn't hurt that the stock market hit a record high on Monday, and we've got another high for the S&P 500, and we've got a 2.1% GDP growth rate of the last quarter. We've got historically low minority unemployment and historically low overall employment, like back to 1969. And that tends to make people start to think, maybe that guy's not so bad after all. I mean, man, we even got, I told you about this Jamaican immigrant. She voted for Obama, thought he was going to turn things around, thought he was going to do more on criminal justice reform. She said he didn't. President Trump has. And she said President Trump came in. He delivered on criminal justice reform. And now he's delivered on his promise to the American people and done more for African Americans than any other president has done in my lifetime. That Jamaican immigrant, by the way, is going to run against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for the congressional seat that she currently holds. Wow. Yeah, that might be a bad situation. And it might be backfiring on the Democrats. Have you heard of a robot dog? Have you seen these little videos on YouTube of these robot dogs playing soccer, walking up and down stairs? Well, it's not just for YouTube anymore. Now we've got the Massachusetts State Police actually using the robot dogs. And the ACLU is not happy. Are you worried about the robot dog? We'll get to that in just a second, and the myth of voter suppression. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board. My name's Greg Knapp, and for Chad on The Chad Benson Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
Hey, my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you in. 844-DIG-CHAD. Are you ready for the robot dogs? They are here. Massachusetts State Police has Spot. That's what they've named the robot dog because they lack any creativity. But they've got him on loan for a pilot program test. Now, the robot dogs come with an arm, 360-degree cameras, limited artificial intelligence, and they're using them for exploration and surveillance, and specifically for exploration and surveillance in very dangerous situations. Sounds great, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to put a human being there. You wouldn't even really want to put a dog there. But a robot dog, hey, it truly is just a pile of metal. Now, it's an expensive pile of metal, but it's a pile of metal. The ACLU worried. Do you share their worries? Because part of it I do. I've kind of got mixed emotions on this. Mixed emotions, kind of like your mother-in-law going off a cliff in a brand new Cadillac. Mixed emotions because I think there's great value in having the robot dog. Imagine you've got a hostage situation. You can get the robot dog up there real close and not worry about the robot dog getting shot. Or even if you're just trying to go down a dark tunnel or a dark alley even, and you're afraid of an ambush, you can send the dog with the camera. And if you've got somebody who's got, I don't know, let's say a bomb strapped to them, you can send the robot dog. And if the person won't take the bomb off, maybe you could even, use the robot dog to take the guy down. I don't know everything that the robot dog could do. But the ACLU is worried. Quote, we just really don't know enough about how the state police are using this. And the technology that can be used in concert with a robotic system like this is almost limitless in terms of what kinds of surveillance and potentially even weaponized operations may be allowed. Now, the people who make the robot dog, Boston Dynamics, they have a user agreement that actually says you cannot weaponize it. So this is not a weaponized dog. But if you need to do surveillance and it's in a dangerous place, why wouldn't you want this dog to do it? Well, Greg, but what if they start doing surveillance when they're not supposed to? Well, isn't that a risk right now with humans? Isn't that a risk right now with long-armed cameras and thermal imaging and all? A lot of this stuff has gone to the Supreme Court already on what you can and can't do with surveillance. So I don't know that just because it's on a robot makes it any different. But if it is an extremely dangerous situation and then a person starts bringing out weapons and starts trying to shoot people, why not have a weapon on the end of the robot dog that you could fire remotely? As long as a human being is in charge of it, why not? In fact, probably won't pull the trigger as quickly because the robot dog, you don't have to worry about getting shot. I think it's pretty cool. I want to see how it works. I kind of want one. I want a robot. I want a robot dog. I want a flying car. You want a lot of things. It's Thanksgiving. I mean, that's Christmas. All right. For Thanksgiving, I'm thankful that I don't have a robot dog. I don't know if that really works. I've got to tell you about this voter suppression stuff because even Joe Biden the other day alluded to the woman who ran for governor in Georgia and the fact that she probably should have won. And he was dangerously close to saying that she was cheated out of it and that the vote was rigged or there was voter suppression. And we hear this time and time again from the left and the Democrats. There was a great piece out by the Wall Street Journal explaining how this is a total myth. And really what the Democrats are doing is dividing us and making a whole segment of our society feel like the vote doesn't matter. When President Trump talked about maybe not accepting the vote, he was called every name in the book. The Democrats have been doing this ever since. We'll get into that in just a second. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. My name's Greg Knapp, and for Chad Benson.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. You can go online to thechadshow.com. You can also dial us up at 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD. And don't forget on Twitter, Chad loves it when you tweet him, and it would be at the Chad Show. At Chad Benson Show. I read that wrong. At Chad Benson Show. So lots of ways for you to be part of the broadcast. Let's talk about this voter suppression. The other day, Joe Biden was trying to talk about who he might pick as his vice presidential running mate if it gets to that point, and he started describing these different women. He couldn't really name them because he couldn't remember their name. That's not what happened. I think that is exactly what happened. So he was describing the woman who ran for governor in Georgia, was it? Yeah, Stacey Abrams. Yeah, he couldn't remember her name. You know, she still complains that she was cheated out of becoming the governor, and a lot of Democrats have jumped on board, including Hillary Clinton. Remember when Hillary Clinton said she couldn't believe that Donald Trump would even question an election? The idea that he would even question an election? That could destroy our entire republic. And now she's doing the same thing ever since she lost. The claim is that the Republicans are trying to suppress the minority vote. Yes, by using photo IDs. Black people can't get photo IDs? Well, they can. But so then isn't it discriminatory to require a photo ID to drive? Or to rent a car? Or to rent a hotel room? Or to do just about anything in America? No. It's ridiculous, right? Well, the Wall Street Journal has looked at a lot of the data that's out there. And the idea of voter suppression is just a total myth. Democrats picked up 40 House seats and 9 governorships last election. That's a pretty good year for the Democrats. And yet they continue to act like there's voter suppression going on. Cory Booker. Right here in this great state of Georgia, it was the voter suppression, particularly of African American communities, that prevented us from having a Governor Stacey Abrams right now. Think about the damage that's doing to our country. To having people running for president claiming that our country is suppressing the votes of people based on their skin color. There's zero proof of it. Zero. But they're telling them that they're being discriminated against in a systemic way. And in one of the most important ways ever, their vote. Unbelievable. Bernie Sanders. Voter suppression cost the Democratic Party a governorship here in this state by denying black people and people of color the right to vote. Pete Buttigieg. Partisan voter suppression dictates the outcome of elections before the voting even begins. These people are saying we're a banana republic. These people are saying that we don't have legitimate elections. The very same people that were raking Donald Trump over the coals for saying, I may accept the election. He won. They've never accepted it. They're doing precisely what he said he might do, and they're claiming that what they're doing is standing up for the oppressed. No, they're trying to divide us, and they're lying. They have no basis for saying this at all. Here's what the Wall Street Journal found. Black and Latino turnout nationwide last year hit a record high for a midterm election. Even with voter ID requirements, registration checks, limits on early voting in some states, and minority voter turnout went up. Turnout increased 13.4 percentage points for Hispanics, 11.4 percentage points for blacks, 11.7 percentage points for whites. And those are U.S. Census Bureau statistics. Well, no, but Miss Abrams, Republicans canceled 1.4 million voter registrations. What do you say about that? Well, I say they were following federal law because the law requires states to remove names of registered voters who have not cast ballots for years to ensure the integrity of the vote. Because if you've got guys that have been on the registration for 7, 8, 9 years and they haven't voted in that time, guess what somebody does? They go, ooh, this person hasn't voted in a long time. You know what we're going to do? We're going to put in an absentee ballot for them, and then when we get it, we can send it back in and we can vote and they'll never know. And it happens. So the only Georgians who hadn't cast ballots in more than 7 years and did not respond to notices to confirm their residency were removed from the rolls. So you haven't voted in 7 years. You were contacted by letter. You didn't respond. You're removed from the roll. You know why? Because you probably don't live there anymore. Supposedly that purge cost her the election. Well, the purge did not affect minority turnout. Listen to this. A larger share of blacks voted than whites last year in Georgia. Black turnout in Georgia increased 16.6 percentage points from 2014 and only 11.3 percentage points for whites. So there was a bigger jump in black voting than white voting. And there was a higher percentage of black voters who voted than the percentage of white voters who voted in Georgia. But it was minority suppression of the vote. That's what really happened. No. Miss Abrams received 90% more votes in Atlanta's Fulton County than the Democrats did 4 years earlier. She got 90% more votes in Atlanta than the Democrat who ran 4 years ago got. And supposedly there was minority voter suppression. Now, the Democrats also say Republicans in Georgia had some other states that have limited early voting, and that makes it harder for people to vote. Okay. In Georgia, in 2011, they cut early voting from 45 days to 21 days. So you're telling me you got 21 days to vote early, 3 weeks, and you can't get to the polling booth. Come on. There is zero proof, and they just keep saying it. Democrats keep trying to divide us over race. They keep trying to make it sound like Republicans want to stop minorities from voting. The reason you want voter ID, the reason you want a smaller amount of early voting, the reason you want to purge voting rolls if you haven't voted in 7 years, the reason you want to do all these things is to make sure that your vote counts, to make sure that somebody else isn't using a fraudulent vote to cancel out your vote. And it doesn't matter what color you are. One vote for one person. Wait, scratch that. One legal vote for one legal person. The only people who are against voter ID are the people who want fraudulent votes. Really. That's the real reason they're against it. Because there's nothing racist about it, especially when these states are giving them away for free. So, well, there's a higher percentage of poor people who are a minority. You can get it for free. If you can't afford it, they will give it to you for free so you can vote. Well, this doesn't seem right. It's a myth. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you're in. Oh, speaking of voting, did you see what's happening with this town it's called Brookline in Massachusetts, Massachusetts, and they're looking to lower the voting age to 16 years old. In fact, they've already voted on doing precisely that. The town of Brookline, seeking approval from the state to lower the voting age to 16. It was approved 142 to 71 in a town meeting Thursday night. So they have to get this approved in the state legislature, but otherwise they're ready to go. 16 years old. What? 16? Do you remember what you were thinking about when you were 16 years old? Do you think that you put enough effort into understanding what was going on in your community to vote when you were 16? I did, Greg. I'm sure there are some people, they mature faster, they actually pay attention, and they're actually voting. But the vast majority are going to do whatever their buddy on Twitter told them to do, or maybe their mom, or maybe their favorite celebrity, or maybe at their high school pep rally. I mean, come on. Let's just... Greg, why do you think that these children don't care? I know what I was like when I was 16. Man, if the cute girl asked me to vote for somebody, I would do it. Here's board member Raul Fernandez, though. He loves the idea. He says, these elections directly impact these people. Yeah, don't elections directly impact everybody? Don't they directly impact a 5-year-old? Don't they directly impact a 2-year-old? Are we going to let them vote? At the age of 16, they can start working and paying taxes on that work. There's no reason why these young people should not have a say in our politics. Should they be allowed to drink? I mean, if they're allowed to vote. Should they be adults for everything else? Should they be tried as an adult if they commit a crime? No, that's different. Because why? Well, because you see, 16-year-olds, their brain hasn't fully developed yet. And their frontal lobe especially, which makes it harder for them to really think out consequences before they make decisions. So therefore, we've decided that they need to be treated as juveniles in the court system. Okay, wait, you said their frontal lobes aren't fully developed and they're not making good decisions? Yeah, that's correct. And you want them to vote? Well, that's completely different. Why would you try to even compare those two things? I mean, even the 17-year-old girl at Brookline High School said the same thing. I think we need to be older, maybe in college. And when you start thinking independently to vote with care so we know what we're voting on. Now that I almost want to let her vote just for saying that. You think about the average adult. And, this always gets me in trouble, but I don't want more people voting. I want more people who care enough to get informed on the issues to be voting. If you don't care, if you can't even be bothered to go to a candidate's website, or to, read some news articles, or to watch the debate, then why are you voting? Oh, you're trying to stop people from voting. No, I'm trying to get you to actually consider why you're voting. Spend a little time. Understand what the issues are. Really learn about the person instead of, you know what? I think I could drink a beer with that guy. I'm pulling the lever. I'll never forget which election it was, I may forget, but I'll never forget one time. It might have been the Obama first time when Oprah Winfrey said, when it comes down to who you're going to vote for, I think you really should just think about, when you think about voting for someone, who makes you feel better? Oh, yes. That's how we should vote. Thank you, Oprah. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are in. Melania Trump got booed, and Kim Kardashian says she's going to quit her overtly sexual look. Wait till you hear why. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. I hope you have great plans for Thanksgiving. I hope you eat a lot of turkey. I hope you have an extra belt buckle hole to loosen it up a little bit. And I just hope you have great weather and great travels. I know that it's very difficult across the country right now. Please check your airfare and your flights. I guess airfare is another way to say it. Make sure that your flight is not canceled, because there's a lot of that going around, and I wish you all the best. And really just take some time to be thankful. Take some time to be thankful. Melania Trump, I think, has been a great first lady. What has she done that would make you say, no, she's been a horrible first lady? Anything? I mean, really, if you think about it, I thought Michelle Obama did a fine job. I thought, Barbara Bush did a fine job. I mean, they're figureheads, and they usually find something that most people agree with, some kind of a charity to work for, and they do a good job. So why is Melania Trump being treated differently than all these other first ladies, not just by the average person on the street, but by the media? And she has been. She's been treated horribly by the media. And now it's filtered all the way down to children. She was booed in Baltimore yesterday. She spoke at the Be More Youth Summit at the University of Maryland. It was intended to promote healthy attitudes, help children understand the dangers of opioid use. She has a campaign called Be Best. So now she did get a lot of cheers and a lot of applause, but you could also hear the boos. Why would you boo the first lady? Well, because she's married to that monster. And if she's going to be married to him, and if she's not going to just divorce him and move out, then she's part of the problem. She's like a Nazi and a white supremacist, and we can boo her all we want. She's trying to do something good for the country, and she's there to help these children. She said, "Thank you to all the students who are here. I'm so proud of you for the bravery it takes to share that you've been strongly affected by the opioid epidemic, in some way." Now, when she was asked about the boos afterwards, she said, "We live in a democracy, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. I remain committed to educating children on the dangers and deadly consequences of drug abuse." And for that, she's getting booed. Really? This isn't the first time people have protested her, if you remember. When she visited the Children's Hospital in Boston earlier this month, the nurses and staff members protested for visiting a hospital. So we see this on college campuses. Now we're seeing it at hospitals. Is it any surprise that you're seeing children pick up what they're watching adults that they look up to doing? But remember, they're the ones who are tolerant. They're the ones who say love trumps hate. They're the ones who say you've got to go high when they go low. Well, all I see them doing is going low. It's really sad. Kim Kardashian says she's ready to go high and not go so low with the waistline on her bikinis. She is changing. Kanye, her husband, has really gotten into his Christian faith, and so she's trying to tone down the sexual look she puts up on Instagram. Really? New interview with New York Magazine, The Cut. Says, "I don't know if it's the fact my husband has voiced that sometimes too sexy is overkill and he's not comfortable with that. I listen to him and I understand him. Still, at the end of the day, he always gives me the freedom to be and do what I want." But on their reality show recently, Kanye told his wife that her skin-tight dress for a recent event was too much, and that her showing so much skin has impacted his heart and soul. How long do you think this is going to last with Kim Kardashian? She also said that now that she's spending time at the White House and doing more important stuff, she said she thought to herself, "I'm here at the White House, and then the next day I was posting like a crazy bikini selfie. And I was thinking, I hope they don't see this. I have to go back there next week." Good for her. So she's starting to think, you know what? There's more to me than just putting up sexy bikini pictures on Instagram. And then I'm going to have to tell my children one day, why did I do this? And when I try to be taken seriously at the White House, people are going to be looking at my bikini picture? Really? I'm glad she's starting to think about that. It might be something for a lot of the teenagers that are posting on Instagram right now to think about. We'll see how long it lasts, though, when those likes go down on Instagram. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad Benson. This is The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show.